This is a hot air gun. I've had a few problems with this. I had a problem with the switch, and now I've had the element burned out. The first problem I had was with the switch, and that was after I only had it for a short period of time. It was a plastic switch, just slid back and forth for on and off. I replaced that with the single pole, single through toggle switch, and epoxied it in here with JB Weld. I put a piece of saran wrap across here, put some JB Weld on this side, screwed that back together, and finished this off flat on both sides. And that switch is glued in place permanently, but I can still remove this if I need to get in here to work on the wiring or anything else. The next problem is that the heating elements have burned out. Now let's see if I can fix that. This quit the other day. I've had this for 10 years or so. Line voltage comes in, it's connected to this point and feeds this coil that wraps around, comes back to the other side of line voltage, and then this small coil connects to that same point, comes around. This is used as a voltage drop to supply power to what is essentially a 12-volt motor. There's a little diode in here to make that pulsating DC. It looks like the large wire fused, melted, and that probably got hot enough to cause the small one to melt, come apart at the same time. I'm going to lengthen the end of this wire, put a loop on the end of it, bring it back to this point. I'm going to lengthen the end of the large coil, put a loop on it, put a bolt through here, and see if I can get this to work again. They originally used a grommet type rivet to crimp the end of this wire to the end of these two heating elements. I did not want to try and drill that grommet out of there, so I just used a very tiny bolt and nut with two washers on either side, and I looped the end of the heating element in between those two washers and tightened that up, and that should hold that fine. Now, why did these elements break in the first place? These things get hot and cold so many times, they probably get brittle right at the edge of that crimped connection. There was probably a little bit of a burr there, and there's a little bit of vibration from this thing running. So when the one side fused, that caused the other side to fuse at the same time. So I have put that together. The switch is in the on position, and I'll zoom back and we'll plug it in and see if it works. Success. I don't want to run that very long without that shroud on there because I don't want those elements to overheat. It's all back together again. I did not have to shorten the heating element more than about a ½ an inch. The small element, that's the voltage drop for this motor, it was shortened by maybe 2 inches, but not enough to have any noticeable effect on the speed of the motor. Now, I've had this thing for quite a few years. Hopefully it'll last quite a few more. It's made in Taiwan. This was a Hanger 9 product. It's called a deluxe heat gun. It does have a feature back here where you can turn this to slow the airflow, what they call an air adjustment, to make things a little hotter or a little colder. I would suggest that if you have a gun like this, you leave that wide open because you want maximum airflow to go through there to keep that heating element from getting too hot. If what you're using it on, it needs to be cooler, move the gun further away. If you need it to be hotter, move the gun closer, leave the airflow wide open.